Danica Patrick she's phenomenal.
She's big. She's very big. You know, even people who don't follow racing know who Danica Patrick is.
She has definitely been one of the best performing female athletes in the sport.
She's got a unique personality to her, you know, to be over here with you know, with these men, week in, week out. You got to be tough. You got to be a fighter.
There's been intense pressure on her kind of to hold it together through all of the stuff. You know, she's sort of learning as she goes along.
She's a hero and an icon for young women that are coming into the sport. She's a marketer's dream.
She holds the record for the most Super Bowl commercials. If you know anything about America, everybody watches the Super Bowl. So if they haven't seen her in a race car, they've seen her in a commercial.
What's it like to be Danica Patrick?
Well, that's hard because I am her. I mean, that's a difficult question to answer when, you know, you're present in your own life and you don't know what it's like any other way. Usually when people ask me what it's like to be a female race car driver, I'm like, well, I've never been a male, so I really don't know the difference. But I mean, I'm a very fortunate person. I have had great opportunities. I've had, I get to do so many cool things. I meet a lot of great people. You know, it's a pretty charmed life for sure.
She's the most accomplished female race car driver that America knows. 3rd in the Indianapolis 500, 8th in the Daytona 500. Those are both standards for women athletes in those races. Plus, the fact is that she is kind of her own person, and she does things kind of her way. And I think that resonates with a lot of the American public.
I read Forbes, and you were the 2nd most powerful woman in sports. Serena Williams is the only person in front of you. Does that sit well with you?
Sure. For me, I think when I hear most powerful, I think of a lot of different things. It's not just like highest earnings or anything like that. It's about, you know, your presence in the public with your effect on women or effect on kids, or, you know, what voice do you carry?
She can basically do everything that all the guys can do, and I kind of like that growing up.
I'm a big fan of her since she started. I like to see her go faster, maybe.
I appreciate what she's doing and what she's trying to do for women in this sport, yes.
I kind of view her as a crossover, so she's both you know, one of our drivers in our top series, but she's also a celebrity. She was a celebrity before she came to NASCAR, and we think that's just grown since she's been here in NASCAR.
My son races quarter midgets at a local track, and there's girls out there, and most of them are Danica Patrick fans. And you know, I'm sure it's not only been encouraging for the ones that are already doing it, but it's been inspiring for the ones that are going to start doing it because of what they've seen her do.
What was it like growing up in Illinois with this passion for race driving?
Well, that's just it. I mean, it started like that. It started as a passion. I did tons of stuff when I was a kid. I mean, I tried like every sport, and I tried other things like band and choir. I mean, I tried everything, and I tried racing, and I loved it. With racing, you can get that instant gratification, and so that's that propelling force to do more, be more, faster, and I loved it. And it wasn't until much later in my life that my dad told me how I asked to go to the track all the time when I was a kid and go practice, and I think it was just that. Like, I loved going faster and faster. I love to set a goal and achieve it. And so, you know, when you go out to go faster or go for a lap time and you do it, then it's setting a goal and achieving it.
You hear lots of sports men and women talk about their drive to succeed. He wasn't a pushy dad. He didn't make you go to the track. It was you pushing him.
Well, I mean, it probably could have been perceived that my dad was very pushy, but the way that I would re-describe it to people, because when he was more involved, I mean, it was more obvious. Like, he has, and this is where I get it from, a temper, and you know, was real aggressive and loud and somewhat scary and off-putting to people, which I'm sure I can be all those things. So, you know, again, it's not my fault, right? It's my dad's fault, and I'm sure it was his dad's fault. It's never our fault, it's somebody else's. Blame the pit crew. But he was a puller, not a pusher. That's what I always said. He always told me that they never let me or my sister quit anything that we started. So if we started, you know, band, we had to play the year out. Like, if we did T-ball, we had to finish the season out, so we weren't allowed to quit in the middle of something. He was very hard on me, for sure. I don't think there's anyone from my childhood or from go-karting days that would ever describe him any differently. He took me to the next level all the time to see if I could do it, and so these aren't things that I knew when I was a kid, but it's why I'm here today.
The perception would be that you were a tomboy growing up, but looking at pictures of yourself, you were in the cheerleading squad.
That's right. I mean, I had Barbies when I was a kid. I mean, like we had like 1 or 2 Ken dolls and a bunch of Barbies. We had a dollhouse. I mean, if somebody were to ask me something about you that people don't know, and that's that I would say that I'm like quite girly outside the car. I mean, the things that I like to do outside of the car are, I mean, I like manicures, pedicures. I like girl trips. I mean, you know, everything. I mean, I'll gossip on the phone from time to time.
It's the classic misconceptions, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And so I mean, you know, it's unique. But shoot, I'm unique, I guess.
I do root for Danica because I root for the underdog, and I think sometimes she's the underdog. Probably because she's a woman.
Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Chad Canals, Mike Hilton.
I don't care whether it's Danica Patrick or any other woman. I just don't think that on a 1.5 mile speedway or a short track, I just don't think it's a woman can do the job.
Greg Biffle, Chase Elliott, Chocolate Myers.
There's one name that's missing. Danica Patrick?
Oh yeah, well, I ain't got it yet.
You took a chance when you were very young, age 16, to come to England and pursue your dream further. That must have taken a lot, to quit school, leave home, leave family, and go to the other side of the world.
I think that probably took more for my parents than it took for me. Like, I'm thinking about if I had a 15 turning 16-year-old and they wanted to move across an ocean and leave high school, I'm not sure what I would do, but they're adults, so they could also see what I was doing in racing, and they could see something special and different and unique in the talent. So, you know, I'm sure that kind of helped, but still, I mean, sending a 16-year-old to England to live basically by herself, I mean, it's brave.
I think the first time I heard of her was when I heard about this teenager from Chicago area going over to Europe to go race. And there was some buzz about, you know, hey, this could be, you know, the great woman driver that everybody's been talking about, but, you know, she's just a young teenager. You know, we'll see how she develops.
And how was that experience? How did that experience in England change you as a person and as a driver?
Well, I would say that the biggest change in me was that when I came back, after it all, I didn't have as much emotion. I was so much colder, which is the opposite of me. Like, it hardened me.
Did the racing world accept you in Europe? Did they welcome a female driver coming over to their sport?
No, that's not how it felt. It didn't feel like Europe or England was excited about me. They weren't excited about this, something different. You know, I remember my team owner at one point in time, we were practicing, we were at Donington, and we were testing, and I think, you know, I don't remember if it was raining or not, it probably was, and we all came in after making a run, and he leaned into the car and told them, like, somebody asked who was quickest, and he said, "The freaking girl is quickest, what are you doing?" Like as if it's not supposed to happen.
You did a fashion shoot for an English magazine, FHM, and you say that changed things for you because of the way you became more sellable.
Well, I mean, I remember the opportunity, and it definitely was out there, but I mean, I feel like I didn't do anything that I was uncomfortable with. There were certain things I said no to. Do I like to be sexy and female, feminine, attractive, or made to look as attractive as possible? Of course, like, that's a side of me. It's also a side of me to be rough and tough. It was a good exercise in testing the limits of my comfort zones and also learning what other people's comfort zones were like.
And at the age of 23, you basically turned the motorsport world upside down by joining the IndyCar series, which is a massive deal in America. And that rookie season, Danica Mania was born.
Right.
How was that for you going through it?
The Indy 500 was just, it was just one of those game changers. And what was it like for me? It was a little overwhelming. And not from a feel standpoint, but from a workload standpoint. I just wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to having to do that many interviews, and they're taxing because when I'm talking to you right now, I am super focused and I'm thinking hard because I'm not just answering your questions. I'm like trying to give you the real answer. So I was so drained from all of that. It was a meltdown moment. Here I go, I almost qualify on the pole, and you know, I go into the race and who do you want to win? And they're like, you know, you see adults and kids, they're like, Danica, you know, they're excited. I remember watching that stuff. And I really did almost win the race. Like, it was a very exciting ending. So, you know, there was a follow through, and I'm blessed. I feel like when I came in IndyCar, I do remember thinking, like, I have to do a good job. Like, you don't always get very long here, and it can come and go very quickly if it doesn't go well. And I remember after the Indy 500 was over, Sports Illustrated wanted to do a photo shoot after the race on Sunday. And I was like, are you kidding me? I'm done. Can you just let me start drinking? I need to relax.
Doing so well in IndyCar, was there any hesitation at all about moving to NASCAR? Because it's very hard to see from outside how big NASCAR is in the USA.
The slight hesitation that I had was just that when everything was evolving with doing NASCAR, I was coming off of my best IndyCar season. I finished lots of top fives. I finished 5th in the championship, and it was like, do I really want to like leave this where
start again?
It's like, yeah, start again, and trust me, it's like way start again, more than I thought it would be. But it's where the race season was maybe 17 or 18 races, going to 38, so like triple the workload. But man, when I first got in a stock car, I loved it. Like I had so much fun the first time I ever drove it. I remember hearing the polar opposite of that be that. I remember Dario Franchitti describing his first time in a stock car, and like, he's like, what am I doing? And the first time I got in a stock car, I'm like, I'm home.
It is a man's world still, NASCAR. Are you surprised how well she's done considering, you know, the obstacles in her way?
Yeah, I don't see the obstacles as her being a female in a male-dominated sport. I see it more the issues that she had initially and the learning curve that she had to get to. That was really the biggest thing, because the IndyCar series and in our NASCAR cars, the cars are so different. The Indy cars have a ton of downforce, and it's a different way and a different style of driving. Our cars don't have that. And so it really, the learning curve she had when she started in 2010 part-time and then ascended into our top series in 2013, to me, that's the incredible thing. Not that she's a woman in a male-dominated sport.
I had heard that she was an ice princess, and that she had people doing her hair then, and I remember meeting her for the first time. And I found her to be quite the contrary. I found her to be a very strong woman, and never really got to know her sense of humor, the way she would hang out with the guys and seem to fit into their world until she raced with NASCAR.
It's not an easy sport. I mean, these are the greatest drivers in the world, and you know, you've seen people from the IndyCar come, and people have run F1 and had won races and come over here and not be successful. I mean, that's how hard these guys race every week. So by no means is it easy here.
Most of the drivers who are racing at NASCAR top levels were racing go-karts when they were 4 or 5. So even if she had influence on young girls who are 6 or 7, 5 or 6 years ago, they're still only 12 or 13 years old and will still need to kind of build their resumes before we actually see them on a national level.
I remember when other women were in this sport and the word gender fender bender came up. And that meant that people were trying to take her out. Not Danica, you know, in particular, but the female in the field would be raced harder. Gender fender bender. I remember hearing that when women first started being on the scene, and I think that she is riled up. Sometimes even when people really didn't mean to take her out, she has stood up, and some people maybe criticize her because she has done that. And I think she kind of has to be like that just to survive in this world.
It's not all been plain sailing in NASCAR. There have been a lot of critics of yourself, especially with the rise of social media since you've been in the sport. How do you handle the haters? How do you handle the naysayers? How does it affect you?
I straight up ignore them. I don't read it. I mean, that's the only way you can potentially avoid the judgment and the criticism. I mean, like, when someone says, I wish you would have died in that accident, clearly they, like, I can't even, that doesn't even register. I laugh at that.
The critics say she gets more attention than her racing deserves. Is that fair?
No, probably not. You know, there's going to be critics on everything, of course, but no, I think it is a big deal. And as much as she does strive to just be treated the same. I mean, that's how we try to treat her in the car. That's how, you know, everybody at the shop prepares the cars all the same, and it's no different. She's one of our drivers.
In NASCAR, if you don't stand your ground, you're just going to get pushed around. So she's kind of in a no-win situation, because if she just says, yeah, I'm still learning, you know, go by me, you know, people just take advantage of that all day long. But, you know, look, Juan Pablo Montoya barely got it, right? You know, he won a couple of road course races, but, you know, he didn't have the success that many people expected. So, you know, why should anybody think that Danica Patrick would just get in one of these cars and be successful?
There's a lot of jealous people out there. There's a lot of people who'd like to be in her situation, would like to be in her car. But they're not. So they're going to take that approach and basically, you know, throw daggers and rocks. And, hey, you know, she has earned it. I mean, whether it's been performance related, people related, fan related, I mean, that's what it takes today to be successful over here. Is you have to be able to have all the pieces. You know, there's some great drivers out there that fans don't connect with, sponsors don't connect with. They're not going to be successful. Is it fair? I don't know. What is fair today in the world that we live, you know? I mean, what's fair is if you work hard, put yourself in the right position, surround yourself with good people, you know, you're successful. And I think that's what she's done. She's done an amazing job.
I was told when I got into NASCAR, as a journalist, as a broadcaster in sports talk radio, that no one would take a woman seriously, even being a reporter, much less an anchor in sports talk, right? Until there was a woman competing in the field and winning. If Danica could win, if she could be a contender, it would be huge. She already is huge for the little girls coming up.
This is her 4th full season at the highest level in NASCAR, her 5th full season overall, and you would expect that she would be improving at a little bit stronger level than she has. Her biggest difficulties have been being consistent in running well at certain tracks. And I think the biggest key for Danica is that when she ran well in her first season at Michigan, she said something. She said, like, I've finally gotten comfortable racing this car. And her crew chief said, that's great, but you race these cars uncomfortable. And so it's her trying to find that uncomfortable comfort, as I would say, in order to be able to go fast in these cars.
Have you noticed a difference since Danica has moved to NASCAR? Has the organisation seen any sort of upward curve just because of one driver?
She's joining a long list of celebrities and top athletes in their own right. Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jimmy Johnson, our 6-time champion, Jeff Gordon, who's just retired from the sport, Tony Stewart, a 3-time champion, who's also her teammate. So when she won the pole for the Daytona 500 in 2013, we did see an uptick. You know, she can bring a more casual fan. Her merchandise sales, she's in the top 5 of merchandise sales, so she clearly is very popular. But I wouldn't say, you know, one specific driver is, you know, causing the success of NASCAR.
I remember when I was younger and I thought that if I made it, like, I'll know when I've made it when I get Nomex underwear that's like custom made to me. Because when I lived in England, it was like tents for shirts, and they were super baggy and like really long, and they just didn't fit me at all. And so I was like, when I can have like custom made Nomex, that's when I've made it. Okay, so that happened a long time ago. And now it's like, okay, when I'm on the Wheaties box, that's when I know I've made it, but I haven't done that yet.
And Leonardo DiCaprio, that was another one of your dreams to meet him. Have you done that now?
Well, funny you ask. I didn't meet him, but I went to see a fight, a UFC fight, and I was up in the stands. I wasn't in the front row at all. But he was quite close to the front row, and so he was in the building, and he was down there. So me and my girlfriend loved him when we were growing up in high school, so I got my phone out, and I took a picture, and I zoomed in, and I sent it to my girlfriend, and I said, that right there in the hat, I know you can't really see his face, and I know it's a little blurry, but that is Leonardo DiCaprio. We're in the same room. And she was like, that's so cool. And I thought, oh man, I could have maybe met him. I could have maybe, like I know one of his friends. I've met him a couple times, and I was like, he was there, and I was like, I felt close.
What do you see as your legacy to the sport of NASCAR? Because you were such an important and integral part of the sport now.
I've thought about how I want to be remembered in racing. And that would be that I want people to remember me as a great driver. I hope that, I don't care if they I'm thinking of me as a girl too, but I hope they say, she was a great driver and she was a girl, but she was legit, you know, like that's what I hope that they remember about me.
Her legacy also is that, hey, if you put your mind to it and you're not afraid to do it, that you can do it. I think part of her legacy will be is that she has been very open. Like the first time she got in a NASCAR car, she was like, she couldn't figure out, you know, how to get in the car, and she didn't know what to do with her hair, and she was like, man, this smells funny. Is it supposed to smell like this? And she was not afraid to show that she didn't know what was going on. And she wasn't afraid to sound to maybe NASCAR people like, wow, she just, what's she doing here? But she showed the strength and the confidence in herself and in her abilities that she could learn.
My daughter, who is 15, she does karting, and she has looked since she was 7, 8 years old at Danica Patrick, both when she was in IndyCar and now being in NASCAR, and it's her favorite driver because it's someone like her gender, and it's nice to see. And they've had the opportunity to meet in my position, and that's kind of a neat thing for a dad to bring to his daughter too.
You're a cool dad.
Yes, for a
day.
In NASCAR, I mean, I want to win. I mean, I want to be one of those very few drivers that have won in IndyCar and NASCAR. I think that would be cool.
Danica Patrick, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
Absolute pleasure. Thank
Cheerio.
You. Cheerio, old chap.
Me and my boy.